This was my third year after retiring from the mercenary world for my husband. He allowed his female secretary to barge into the hospital, causing my critically ill grandmother to suffer a cerebral hemorrhage. Enraged, I slapped her. In the hospital, the first thing my husband said to me was a question. Sarah went to see your grandmother out of kindness. How could you treat her like that? Do you know that your slap made her face swollen for days? My heart felt like it was being pulled by countless threads. Then do you know that if I hadn't discovered it in time, Grandma would have been angered to death in this hospital bed? He fell silent, his voice hoarse. Sorry, I wrongly accused you. I looked at him coldly without saying a word. After taking care of Grandma for 3 days and 3 nights, I fell asleep. When I woke up again, I found myself tied to a helicopter, with a battlefield filled with gunfire below. My husband held his female secretary, his voice cold. Don't you like hitting people? Today I'll let you hit enough. Several of his underlings behind him pretended to cut the ropes tying me. I narrowed my eyes, my expression icy. Donovan, you better not regret this. Everyone present was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. This is the first time I've ever heard someone tell Mr. Donovan not to regret it. One of them even spat on my face. What kind of garbage are you, daring to threaten Mr. Donovan? I turned my gaze to Donovan. But he seemed indifferent, coldly watching everything. Only after a group of people had humiliated me thoroughly did he speak. These past few years I've spoiled you too much, making you so insensible. Apologize to Sarah, and I'll let you go. I immediately let out a cold laugh. Donovan, do you still remember what you promised me? 7 years ago, when we first met, he was just a bastard son abandoned by the Donovan family. He lived a life worse than death every day. On a whim, I rescued him. On the day of our proposal, he said, Arya, from today onwards my life is yours. Let me spoil you from now on. At that time, he was just a discarded son whose first half of his life was without light. And I was the king of mercenaries who had walked through 10 years of gunfire. I smiled and held his hand back, asking him, Then in the future, shall we travel all over the world together? How did he answer then? I still remember that sentence to this day. He said, What my beloved desires, my heart longs for it. At that time, I really thought I had found a lifetime of happiness. I even gave up my identity as the leader of mercenaries to be with him, and chose to retire. I thought we would live a stable life forever. But only a year after we got married, he brought in a female secretary who liked to oppose me in every way. Sarah especially loved to antagonize me. When I was preparing for our wedding anniversary, she claimed to be unwell, wanting Donovan to stay by her side all night. When I wanted to see company documents, she deliberately brought the wrong files, and before I could speak, she would cry and call Donovan. Each time, I would twitch the corners of my mouth, wanting to wait for him to finish dealing with things and come back to explain. But I never expected that what I would be waiting for was an ending of being humiliated by everyone. Donovan was silent for a moment, as if he wanted to say something. Sarah hid in his arms and sobbed. I just heard that Mrs. Donovan's grandmother was not feeling well, and wanted to visit her. Who knew she couldn't even handle a single sentence? Donovan, I really didn't mean to. How could Mrs. Donovan blame me? If that's the case, I might as well just die. Sarah cried and pretended to jump out of the plane. Donovan immediately felt distressed and quickly hugged her. He turned his head and began to scold me. Arya, if you just quietly be your housewife. Maybe if I'm happy, I'll even give you some pocket money every month. But Sarah is my person. Who gave you the guts to speak to her like that? My heart grew colder inch by inch. I clenched my hands tightly, looking at him with resentment in my eyes. But who remembers that I was the one who carried him, half dead, out of the rainforest and sent him back to the Donovan family? I told the Donovan family, if you still want to survive in Yun City, then treat Donovan well. After that day, he finally ate his first hot meal, moved into the best villa, and even more so, the Donovan family extraordinarily gave him a large amount of shares. At that time, he took my hand and said earnestly, Since meeting Arya, I've been getting luckier and luckier. Arya is truly the best benefactor in my life. I smiled, and to protect his pitiful self-esteem, I didn't tell him my identity. But secretly, I used my connections to help him expand his business empire step by step, and helped him climb to the top. So, until this moment, he doesn't even know that the leader of the mercenaries here was once my subordinate. But now he's actually humiliating me like this for Sarah's sake. I narrowed my eyes, a sharp light flashing in my eyes, and gently tapped the back of my left hand twice with my right hand, and the subcutaneous chip instantly responded. Donovan, I'll give you one more chance. As long as you let me go now, it's not too late. Otherwise, within 2 days, the Donovan family will cease to exist. Everyone was momentarily stunned by the coldness in my eyes, but then, they laughed wildly. The leading man slapped me hard in the face. Bah! You really think you're some big shot? Donovan sat to the side, as if he didn't see anything. Sarah's eyes were red-rimmed. She held Donovan's arm, and said with a grievance, Donovan, why don't we just forget it? Who in Yun City doesn't know that your life was saved by Mrs. Donovan, and how miserable you were back then? It's okay. For you, suffering a little bit is nothing. It's okay. For you, suffering a little bit is nothing. Donovan's already unclear expression instantly became even more gloomy, and a heavy chill emanated from his body. After achieving success and fame, he hated others mentioning his humiliating past the most. He waved his hand, and his subordinates took out 2 shots of anesthetic from the medical kit. He held the anesthetic and looked at me with narrowed eyes. Arya, are you going to apologize or not? I turned my head to the side. Good. He looked at me like that, and the anger in his eyes intensified, and he said good 3 times in a row. He threw the anesthetic in his hand to the leading man. His voice filled with intense anger. Inject her with it. Doesn't she like to hit people? Let her go down and hit those people enough. I want to see, just how much ability does she have? The needle pierced into my skin, and only a few drops of blood flowed out. The small wound would heal in a moment, but it hurt more than all the injuries I've suffered in all my years as a mercenary combined. As more and more blood flowed from the wounds on my body, I looked at him with bloodshot eyes. You're throwing me to those people, but also injecting me with anesthetic. Donovan, do you want me to die that much? Donovan frowned, displeased, and said, What anesthetic? I injected you with stimulants. Don't worry, you won't die. My people will be watching the situation below at all times. I paused before I could speak. Sarah interrupted me. Donovan, I really can't bear to throw Mrs. Donovan down. Why don't you let Mrs. Donovan kneel down and apologize to you, and we'll just let it go at that. I'm just a small secretary. It doesn't matter if I suffer a little. After all, Mrs. Donovan is still your legal wife. Donovan quickly put his arms around her, his tone gentle. Sarah, you're still too kind. Then he turned his gaze to me. Looking at my wounds all over my body, a trace of awkwardness flashed in his tone. Just do as Sarah says. As long as you kneel down and admit your mistake, I can let you go. Sarah raised her eyebrows at me in Donovan's arms, her eyes full of provocation. I saw the way the 2 of them were snuggled together. My heart ached like it was being cut by knives. Until this moment, the last thread of unrealistic hope in my heart completely dissipated, replaced by endless anger. Why should I kneel down and admit my mistake? Donovan, from beginning to end, I haven't done anything wrong. And I turned my gaze to Sarah, who was being held in his arms. You were the one who told Grandma that one day Donovan would dump me for you, and then I would only be worthy of being by your side, licking your shoes. The man's whip instantly struck my body. By now, my body was already soaked in blood. A trace of hesitation flashed in Donovan's eyes, and he looked at Sarah with a strange expression. Sarah trembled. She looked at me with tears streaming down her face, but the words she spoke seemed to be full of great grievance. I said it. I said it all okay. Mrs. Donovan, I know that Donovan has spent more time on me than on you these past 2 years, so it's only natural that you resent me. But you. She began to sob uncontrollably. Forget it, it's all my fault. I'd rather go down and suffer for Mrs. Donovan. With that, she was about to get up and jump off the plane. Her tactic of retreating to advance completely erased the hint of suspicion in Donovan's eyes. He looked at me. His eyes returned to their icy coldness. Arya, you've disappointed me too much. After this is over, just stay at home in peace. All the banquets that require Mrs. Donovan will be attended by Sarah from now on. I sneered. Fine, we'll get divorced when we get back. But before that, you better not go too far, otherwise you and the Donovan family. Before I could finish my sentence, the man next to me kicked me away. I was suspended in midair by the helicopter, teetering precariously. A fierce look flashed in the man's eyes, and I clearly saw the silent shape of his mouth. Sarah said you have to die today. After saying that, he directly used a dagger to cut the rope that was tying me. I was dropped on a rooftop, and several resident terrorists instantly surrounded me. Who told you to actually throw her down? Donovan suddenly felt a chill down his spine, and loudly questioned the man who had cut my rope. Inside the helicopter, someone who had never spoken before spoke softly. Mr. Donovan, Mrs. Donovan has been beaten to a bloody pulp. If we throw her down like this, she'll die, right? Donovan's heart tightened instantly. The man suddenly knelt down, his tone feigning panic. Mr. Donovan, it wasn't me. Mrs. Donovan cut the rope herself and jumped down. Donovan's face was ashen, his hands tightly gripping the leather of the seat, his tone gloomy. Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and save her. Before I fell, I clearly saw the man's eyes glittering with perverted excitement. Blame it on your bad luck for daring to provoke Sarah. Then you will pay the price for it. He watched me fall from the rooftop as those armed people quickly surrounded me. But gradually, his smile froze on his face. Those people were all dead. Only I remained. Donovan finally breathed a sigh of relief. Quick, land the helicopter. He ran out of the cabin, eager to check my wounds. Having gone through such an ordeal, there was even a hint of panic in his voice. Arya, I just wanted you to admit your mistake. When will you learn not to be temperamental? I looked at him coldly. Grandma is still in the hospital. Even if not for me, for Grandma, you shouldn't be so impulsive, right? With a smack, my slap landed on his face without warning. I couldn't help but let out a sneer. You dare to mention Grandma? Donovan suddenly grabbed my shoulders, his fingers pressing on my wounds, bringing endless pain. He frowned, his voice seeming to plead. Arya, you're just an orphan. Who else can you rely on besides me? As long as you apologize to me and Sarah, I guarantee you'll still be the Mrs. Donovan who no one in Yin City dares to provoke. I watched his mouth open and close, and only felt icy cold in my heart. I lost my parents at a young age. Apart from Grandma, I don't have any relatives, and I can indeed be considered an orphan. But I am definitely not someone without support. Back then, I was able to climb out of the battlefield littered with corpses, and become the new leader of the mercenaries. Now he still holds on to my identity, thinking I'm weak and easy to bully, thinking he is my only reliance. Little does he know, I have relied on myself to get to where I am today. The roar of helicopters came from a distance, and countless mercenaries descended from the sky on ropes. Donovan, who are they? Sarah trembled and sobbed again and again. I raised the corners of my mouth, like a devil from hell. In a few steps, I jumped onto the top of the helicopter, looking down at them. Everyone looked at me, and a look of horror finally began to spread in their eyes. Who are you? The man who hurt me the most was completely terrified. Mr. Donovan, did you hire them? One of Donovan's assistants asked, his voice trembling, but still mustering up the courage. No, I didn't hire them. Donovan stared blankly at everything in front of him, his eyes filled with endless fear and unfamiliarity. He moved his lips. He didn't have such ability. He looked at me again. Arya, come down quickly. You'll die. Against the background of a hail of bullets, I faced the wind, my eyes filled with indifference. The leading mercenary saw me. A glimmer of surprise flashed in his eyes. Boss, you're back. Dozens of helicopters landed simultaneously on the rooftop, hundreds of mercenaries, weapons raised, surrounding Donovan and his group. The originally spacious area instantly felt cramped, carrying an aura of terrifying pressure. Boss, it really is you. Jax was pleasantly surprised to see me after 3 years. Donovan swallowed, cautiously asking me, Arya, how could you be with them? You know them. I was cold, not wanting to waste another word on him. But Donovan seemed oblivious to the situation. That's great, Arya. As he spoke, he reached out to grab my leg. Quick, tell them to put their guns away, we're all on the same side. Before he could finish, a mercenary next to him kicked him in the chest. Stay still. Donovan wanted to say something more, but seeing the gun pointed at his head, he could only look at me. Jax gave Donovan a look of disdain. Who's on the same side as you? I sneered, squatted down, and grabbed Donovan's chin. When you were about to throw me off. Why didn't you say we were on the same side? Donovan's eyes darted around in panic. When I was being tortured with a whip, why didn't you say we were on the same side? When you injected me with anesthetic, why didn't you say we were on the same side? Donovan finally panicked. No, I didn't. Arya, what I injected you with was. Whether it was a stimulant or an anesthetic, I know the difference. I patted his face, my voice cold. Perhaps he originally intended to inject me with a stimulant, but whatever it was, the moment he tied me onto the helicopter was the deepest betrayal. However, I turned my gaze to Sarah. To think that a mere 2 shots of anesthetic would be enough to kill me here, you think too little of me. That dosage was nothing more than what I faced during antibody testing when I first entered the mercenary world. Sarah was completely terrified at this point. She screamed and tried to hide behind Donovan, but a mercenary roughly dragged her out and threw her to the ground. It wasn't me. Boss, how should we deal with these people? Jax made a throat-slitting gesture. Or should we just throw them onto the battlefield? The distant battlefield was ablaze with war. Throwing them down there would be a certain death. Donovan and the group behind him instantly panicked. He forced out an ugly smile. Arya, you wouldn't, would you? Looking at him like this, all my love was gone, replaced by a deep disgust. I took the medical kit handed to me by my subordinate and replied coldly, Indeed I won't. Before they could sigh in relief, I added, Hand them over to the local government army. After all, this happened on their territory. The smile on Donovan's face instantly froze. He looked at me in fear. Arya. Sarah trembled beside him. She opened her mouth, wanting to beg for mercy, but held it back. Jax clicked his tongue, as if feeling a little regretful. That's a little too easy on them. All right. In a few breaths, I had bandaged my wounds. I have things to do. I'm going back home. Boss, you're leaving already? Jax looked at me reluctantly. I patted his shoulder. Grandma's still in the hospital. Then boss, when will you come back next time? I climbed into a helicopter brought by Jax, and with the wind roaring from the propellers, I said, We'll talk about it later. After returning to China, I went to see my grandmother as soon as possible. Through the glass window of the ICU, I saw her body covered with various tubes and instruments, but she hadn't woken up. Why haven't you been at the hospital these past few days? Don't you know that the elderly need care? The doctor on rounds frowned, looking somewhat displeased. I was stunned for a moment, realizing that several days had already passed. I said apologetically, I'm sorry, I was handling some matters. The doctor frowned, wanting to say something more, but was interrupted by a voice. Arya. I finally found you, Arya. Donovan rushed up to me in a disheveled state, grabbing my hand. What are you doing here? He opened his mouth, his voice hoarse. I came to find you. Jax had sent me a message on the special communicator this morning. Boss Donovan and the others have been extradited back to China and handed over to the domestic police. A few minutes later, another message followed. Donovan might try to find you these next few days, be careful. I put away the communicator and looked at him coldly. What do you want? Donovan paused, his expression somewhat unnatural, but he still held my hand tightly, refusing to let go, and said to me, Arya, I was wrong the other day. I shouldn't have treated you like that. Can you forgive me this time for the sake of our past relationship? Forgive? I withdrew my hand, sized him up, and curled my lips in a mocking smile. What relationship do we have? The relationship of abandoning me on the Syrian battlefield? He hurried to explain. Arya, I didn't know you were that kind of person. I laughed coldly. Donovan, no matter what kind of person I am, it's not a reason for you to abandon me on the Syrian battlefield. Tell me, why do you think I would forgive you? He was choked by my words and looked away. I didn't do it on purpose. I was just momentarily confused. Arya, please let me go. Let the Donovan family go, okay? Looking at the man begging in front of me, I felt no more heart fluttering. I remembered him holding my hand and making vows of eternal love. I also remembered him meticulously preparing for my birthday for over 2 months, with every detail personally handled by him. I remembered watching the sunset with him, and I also remembered sleeping together on straw piles when conditions were harsh. Those beautiful memories are still engraved in my mind, but I can no longer understand the feelings I had at the time. I don't know. How did I even fall in love with such a cowardly man? Donovan, are you going to get out on your own? Or should I call someone to kick you out? He opened his mouth, looking at me pleadingly. Arya. I rubbed my tightly furrowed brow and reached out to dial the hospital security's number. Hello, there's someone causing trouble on the 3rd floor of the inpatient department. Please come and kick him out. That afternoon, I returned to the villa I hadn't seen in a long time. As I entered, I found a row of people kneeling at the entrance. I looked up. There was grandfather Donovan, Donovan's parents, Donovan, Sarah, and some relatives I'd never met before. When they saw me, they immediately burst into tears. Ms. Arya, please have mercy. Grandfather Donovan was even shedding tears. It's all that unfilial son's foolishness. We are willing to compensate. I walked straight past them, but stopped at the doorway. Sarah was tied up and kneeling in the front, her face bruised and swollen, clearly already taken care of. Seeing me stop, Grandfather Donovan pushed Sarah forward. Miss Arya, we all know you're angry. This S. Grandfather Donovan stammered, S for a long time, unable to say her name. This woman, we leave her to your disposal. We only beg you to show mercy and spare the Donovan family. Leave her to me? I looked at Sarah, who was trembling. Even now, though she was shaking with fear, her eyes still flashed with resentment when she faced me. How interesting. I glanced at Donovan, who was kneeling to the side. Do you also agree to do this? Donovan lowered his head and didn't say anything, but based on my understanding of him from 3 years of marriage, I knew that this was the result he was tacitly consenting to. I suddenly found it a little funny. Just 2 days ago he was still holding Sarah in his arms, coaxing her gently. He even threw me off the helicopter to vent her anger. In just 2 days, he had handed Sarah over as a sacrifice. Donovan, you can't do this. She pleaded, but was met with Donovan's endless silence. Until the end, her face was as pale as paper. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside the courtyard. The man who injected me with anesthetic on the helicopter rushed in. Let Sarah go. Even though his eyes flashed with fear, he still shielded Sarah with his body. Miss Arya, if you have to take your anger out on someone, you can take it out on me. It was me who replaced your stimulant with anesthetic, and it was also me who hit you. It has nothing to do with Sarah. Donovan's face suddenly changed, and he looked at Sarah with some annoyance. You two. Sarah's eyes suddenly flickered, and she pushed the man aside, feeling somewhat guilty. Get out of here. Who needs you to take the blame for me? The man was stunned for a moment. Sarah? I narrowed my eyes, raised my foot, and kicked the man in the chest. Do you think I would leave you out? I coldly watched the Donovan family members kneeling in the courtyard. Among them were people over 80 years old, and there were also children who had not yet left their swaddling clothes. I closed my eyes, suddenly feeling a little tired. Get out of here. Usher Group will announce bankruptcy tomorrow. This is your only choice. As for these two, I lowered my eyes to look at Donovan and Sarah. Let them go back to where they came from. Miss Arya. Donovan's father suddenly shouted. Donovan, after all, he is your husband. I turned around abruptly, my eyes revealing intense coldness. From the moment he threw me and the anesthetic off the helicopter, he wasn't. Overnight, partners withdrew their investments, stocks plummeted, and investors broke their contracts. The Donovan family collapsed completely in just 1 day. A week later, Donovan and Sarah were brought to court together. In court, Donovan and Sarah were indicted on 12 counts, including intentional homicide, commercial fraud, and smuggling. With each charge read, their faces grew paler. Finally, Sarah seemed to wake up from a dream and began to cry. No, I don't want to go to jail. It wasn't me. It was Donovan, he was the mastermind. Donovan was stunned for a moment. Then his face flushed red. Bitch. You came up with all those ideas. As he spoke, he tried to strangle Sarah. Order in the court. The judge had to adjourn several times to maintain order. Final verdict. Life imprisonment without parole. I watched them being taken away from below the stage with cold eyes, without the slightest fluctuation in my heart. When Donovan passed by me, a deep plea emanated from his eyes. He moved his lips, murmuring my name. Arya. Even now, he still fantasizes that I can let him go. I put on my mask and brushed past him without looking him in the eye. The sunlight outside the courthouse was beautiful, and I squinted, raising my hand to shield myself. Until now, I suddenly felt a sense of absent-mindedness. This 3-year marriage has now come to an end. In the beginning, I was also depressed and sad, and even tried to salvage it. But later, I increasingly realized that Donovan, to me, had long become a thing of the past. Since he betrayed me, then I will abandon him, it's only fair. My phone dinged, a message arrived. Grandma's awake. The doctor said the surgery was successful, and she is now out of danger. In the hospital room, she held my hand, tears seemingly flashing in her eyes. Good child, you've suffered. I shook my head, holding her hand. It's okay, it's good that you're all right. 2 months later, Grandma successfully left the hospital. The next day, I applied for her passport, and we went abroad to settle down together. I took her through the Eastern European plains, saw the volcanoes of Iceland. We fed seagulls on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. And we visited the sanctuary of the Roman churches. Those sceneries she had never seen, and I had never properly appreciated. We looked at them all together again. Time passed day by day. 3 years later, on an ordinary summer day, I took Grandma to South America to start a new journey. Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I'm pushing Grandma's wheelchair for a walk on the beach. After 3 years of recuperation, Grandma's health has recovered quite well, but her memory has become intermittent. Today she is particularly lucid, and even remembers to remind me to put on sunscreen. Arya, those 2 people have been following us. Grandma suddenly points behind us. I turn around and see 2 ragged beggars hiding behind a palm tree. Despite their haggard and distorted faces, I recognize Donovan and Sarah at a glance. I pause for a moment, suddenly feeling unlucky. They are covered in scars. Sarah has a limp, and Donovan is missing an ear. Save us. Donovan crawls over, extending a dirty hand. Arya. Please. I notice that 3 fingers are missing from his right hand, and the wound is festering. Sarah is curled up to the side, her eyes vacant, muttering something incessantly. After being abroad for 3 years, I've heard a lot of rumors about the 2 of them. I heard that since they caused the Donovan family to go bankrupt, the Donovans almost hated them to death. Relying on their last bit of connections and influence, the Donovans bailed them out of prison. They felt that prison was too easy for them, so they sold them directly to an overseas underworld gang. I pushed the wheelchair around them. Grandma, they've mistaken us for someone else. Let's go back, we'll have your favorite seafood tonight. Heart-wrenching cries come from behind us. Donovan suddenly lunges forward and grabs my leg. Arya, don't abandon me. You can't do this. I am your husband. The word husband seems to trigger some bad memories for Grandma. Her face changes, and she points at Donovan with trembling hands. You are Dono. Seeing that Grandma is about to recall what happened back then, I quickly interrupt. No, Grandma. These are just 2 unrelated people. After I say that, I'm about to push Grandma away. Donovan suddenly hugs me from behind. Arya, save me one more time. Please save me one more time? You saved me from the rainforest back then. I remember everything. You can definitely save me a second time, right? His voice is hoarse, filled with pleading. It seems that he has been tortured badly these past few years. I pry his hands off me, look at him coldly, and lower my voice. I saved you back then, but how did you repay me? Donovan, I advise you not to bother me again. Otherwise, I have 100 ways to make you even more miserable than you are now. Donovan's hands flinch, afraid to make any further moves. I turn my gaze to Sarah. Her eyes are vacant, as if she has long lost her mind, leaving only a shell, becoming a living corpse. I ignore them both, turn around and push Grandma's wheelchair away, across the beach, and back to the hotel. The setting sun casts our shadows long. Desperate howls come from behind, but this time, I don't look back.